Every great story has a group of great heroes for you to believe in and cherish. This story isn't one about heroes created from the minds of incredibly intelligent writers. This is a story about a few human beings who sat down together and tried to play a game. And this isn't a story about mechanical synergy, how you bring together different parts of a game to make yourselves powerful, standing together in strength. It's about how if you don't stand together as friends, if you don't care about one another, it will hurt your synergy as a group of heroes. It will turn you into each other's villains. Understand that not everyone can work well together. Even if you've been friends for a long period of time, there are going to come times when you disagree on moral standards, on desires that you have, and on plans that you want to follow through with. Disagreements on these three major things can cause serious damage to your group's synergy, and I like to call them cases of desynchronization. I classified these cases of desynchronization about 2 years ago. I did so after being a part of the story you are about to hear. The party that acts as the heroes for this story include me and 2 old friends of mine. I had decided to play a dual-wielding fighter, traveling in search of his family. He had been abandoned at a very young age to a coliseum, and was raised to fight for the entertainment of others, even if it would cost him his life. My first friend prepared a paladin, obsessed with avenging his hometown, which had been sacked by an invading force. At night, you could hear him talk in his sleep, calling out to the soldiers he lost that day. My second friend convinced the dungeon master to let him play 2 halflings in a trench coat. These 2 characters never interacted with me or my other friend in a positive way. They kept everything about themselves hidden, making it extremely difficult to trust them and impossible to learn anything about them. Our dungeon master began our game narrating the introduction. The region we started in recently saw an increase in bandit activity, originating from the south. Our party's starting quest was to bring them to justice. Beginning in a small seaside town, we traveled through the nearby forest, hoping to pick up the bandits' trail. Eventually, we managed to find and follow the trail to a wooden fort of mediocre construction. And as we all looked upon the challenge in front of us, the first case of desynchronization occurred. We needed to rise to the challenge by coming up with a plan of attack together. Instead, I was surprised to see my friends run off in different directions. The 2 halflings snuck off around the side of the fort to stealth their way in. The paladin charged straight into the fort, and I, being last in the turn order, attempted to follow the paladin, but was stopped at the front gate by guards. All of us then initiated separate combat encounters, and not a single one of them was designed to be handled by just a single player. The paladin had to run around the courtyard of the fort for several turns, avoiding attacks from 6 bandits. I nearly died in 2 turns due to attacks from 4 bandits, and the 2 halflings snuck further into the fort and started fighting the leader of the bandits on their own. The paladin managed to fend off his wave of enemies, and the 2 halflings were in fact an equal match for the bandit leader, but my fighter barely managed to get away. As I was being shredded by bandits, I managed to throw a net onto one of them, creating an opening for me to disengage and run around the side of the fort in an attempt to regroup with everyone else. When I managed to get over the walls of the fort, I regrouped with the paladin, and we managed to fight off both our encounters together. Meanwhile, the two halflings swiftly defeated the bandit leader and began to search the fort for valuables. There was a map in the bandit leader's quarters with other important locations written on it. Once the halflings were satisfied with what they'd found, they regrouped with the paladin and my fighter, whom had just finished defeating the rest of the bandits. We tried to move past the lack of synergy we just experienced and find the closest marked area on the map. We traveled even further into the forest as a party, searching for a lake. Because none of us had the skills necessary to read the map, it took us an entire day to arrive. When we arrived, we were surprised by what we found. The lake had been used as a massive ritual circle, using the waters as a portal, and we could easily see a small army leaving through it. A singular warrior was left behind to fend us off. The paladin recognized the army and the warrior from the siege on his hometown. He did his best to explain this to the rest of the party, and added a certain personal flair to it, making it sound like he had a vendetta against these people. This caused a second case of desynchronization. My fighter and the two halflings immediately assumed the paladin wanted to fight the warrior on his own in a duel. The paladin excitedly jumped on the chance to duel the warrior, and my fighter and the two halflings watched from a distance that would allow us to help the paladin if things didn't go his way. 18 seconds later, the paladin was knocked unconscious. Unfortunately, because I was last in the turn order again, before I could jump in to help the paladin, the two halflings had to determine what they wanted to do in this situation. This is when I learned one halfling grew up as rogue, and the second halfling had wizard training. The second halfling put me to sleep using its magic. I am quite certain the reason my friend did this was to get the achievement of the kill for himself, and to maintain his character's mystery. In that moment, my friend only considered his desires. He considered what only he could achieve, and he considered his character above all else. These actions showed everyone he cared more about words on a piece of paper than the people that he played at the table with. He was a negative influence on the game in that moment. 30 minutes in real time pass before my fighter and the paladin awaken to see the lake had lost its magic and the warrior was gone. The two halflings had defeated the warrior and thrown its body into the lake, after which the lake immediately lost its magic. When my fighter and the paladin questioned the halflings about what had happened, the halflings claimed the warrior had gotten away. My other friend and I mustered a great deal of patience to not force this man to tell us what had happened, nor to talk down to him for the next few hours about what he did. The paladin nor my fighter knew what the halflings had done, and none of us wanted to waste more time being mad at each other. We looked back at the map and moved even deeper into the forest towards the last marked location. We were able to quickly find the area and were just as quickly spotted by the bandits that defended it. The party began to fight the bandits, group against group. We were in an open clearing that the bandits had carved out of the forest, and we could see tents set up for temporary lodging. Working together for the first time, we rampaged through the clearing, defeating every enemy in sight. It is our one and only case of synchronization, of real synergy. During this rampage, my fighter managed to capture 3 bandits using his net and carefully placed dual sword strikes to tire them out. We decided to tie the bandits to a tree while we searched through the tents scattered throughout the clearing. There was not much treasure to be found, and I realized these bandits were extremely poor. They were living almost entirely hand to mouth. Meanwhile, the 2 halflings and the paladin found a kidnapped woman tied up in one of the tents. While the woman was still in good physical condition, this wrong couldn't be ignored by the party. Unfortunately, this is where the third case of desynchronization occurred. We needed to determine if there were any more bandits in the region. The best way in our minds to accomplish this was to force the captured bandits to tell us if there were any more. However, the paladin and the two halflings wanted to take it a step further. Their plan was to get the information we needed and then torture the bandits to death. I wanted the bandits to face some kind of justice too, but it became obvious to me that this bloodlust my friends were experiencing could not be ignored. I managed to convince them to let me interrogate one of the bandits on my own before they got their hands on him. My conversation with this bandit was brief. I asked him where he was from, why he was here, and if there were any more bandit locations other than those we found on the map. His responses were presented quickly, simply, and truthfully by our dungeon master. He was from a desert far south of the forest, and had been forced out of his home after an invading force had taken over his region. He was impressed by our group's effectiveness in removing him and his friends from the map. I never asked for the man's name. Call me soft, but I knew the moment I gave him over to my friends, he'd be dead. It was in my mind that I saw this man doing what he had to in order to survive. My fighter was a gladiator, whom also had to do what he had to in order to survive. I saw a parallel, and because of that, I decided to help him. I let the bandit escape, and distracted my friends so he would have time to get away. When they realized what I had done, they became very upset. I told them it wasn't our responsibility to kill nor to judge these men, that these men had a reason for being bandits, and that they weren't necessarily reasons they chose. My words fell on deaf ears, and ultimately our dungeon master had to separate us to calm the situation. When we left the forest, it wasn't as a group. We were individuals. We didn't play again as a group for some time. If there is any lesson you should learn from this nerd story, it is to be kind and considerate. You should be kind to your friends and consider your friends. I only wish that your friends are kind to you and consider you in return. Because kindness and consideration are a core aspect of good group synergy.